Vince Gill, the voice that once made millions cry with "Go Rest High on That Mountain," a true legend in country music. He's the kind of artist who never had to shout to be heard, calm, humble, and full of heart. His career wasn't built on noise or headlines, but on truth and raw emotion. Still, for decades, whispers followed him everywhere. About his private life, secret heartbreaks, and the mystery behind that polite, easy smile. People used to say, "No Glenn, no Eagles, no Vince." And yeah, maybe that sounded fair back then, but times change. Now, at 67, Vince Gill is finally peeling back the curtain, talking about the pain he carried in silence, the choices that shocked even his biggest supporters, and the real story behind the man the world thought they knew. This isn't just a tale about a country singer, it's about a boy molded by heartbreak, a man tested by scandal, and an artist finally brave enough to tell his truth. Behind every standing ovation was a scar. Behind every headline, a story the world never heard, and what he went through in those silent years. Unbelievable. Now Vince Gill is confirming things that flip the whole narrative upside down. What he's revealed at 67 doesn't just rewrite his story. It changes how we see his music, the rumors, and the soul behind it all. Before the Grammys, before the sold-out tours, before he became a household name, Vince was just a skinny kid with a beat-up guitar in Norman, Oklahoma. From the outside, his childhood looked picture-perfect. Family dinners, long school days, and a home filled with love and laughter.
Still, gonna have a lot of folks that say no Glenn, no Eagles. And that's fair. That can.
His dad, J. Stanley Gill, might have been a tough federal judge by day, but when the sun went down, he was all music. Nights at the Gill house turned into jam sessions, his dad's raspy voice blending with Vince's careful picking. Music wasn't just sound. It was their secret language, the one thing that said everything when words couldn't. But life has a cruel way of changing everything in one heartbeat. For Vince, that moment came with a late-night phone call, the kind that freezes time. His older half-brother, Bob, the wild one of the family, had been in a brutal car crash. In that single call, childhood vanished, and life was never the same again. His fearless big brother was suddenly clinging to life, trapped in a coma that stretched on for 3 long, agonizing months. When Bob finally opened his eyes, the world wasn't the same anymore, and neither was he. The once loud, teasing, full-of-life brother was now stuck in a body that refused to move, speak, or let him live freely again. Vince, only 11 years old, watched helplessly as his parents, especially his mother, tried to carry the unbearable weight of having a son who was still alive, yet gone in every way that mattered. The Gill house fell quiet. Too quiet. That heavy silence was only broken by the faint sound of Vince's guitar, the one thing keeping him steady. Music became his escape, his comfort, his only way to breathe when everything else felt shattered. That heartbreak never really healed. It just buried itself deep inside him, quietly shaping every note, every lyric, every piece of who he became. Bob remained trapped in that in-between world for years before passing in 1993, the same year Vince released his Christmas album, Let There Be Peace on Earth. One song on that record, It Won't Be the Same This Year, hit harder than anyone realized. It became an anthem for anyone grieving the living, those who are gone without being gone. Vince has said that every time he performs it, his mind drifts right back to that hospital room, an 11-year-old boy wishing life would rewind, wishing his brother could laugh again. That raw emotion became his secret weapon, the thing that made him different in an industry obsessed with polished smiles and perfect hits. While others chased catchy hooks, Vince poured out his truth. No filters, no glitter, just pain turned into melody. But his story was only beginning. By the late 80s, Nashville was all about flash, fame, and fast money. And there was Vince Gill, the musician's musician, admired by everyone in the business, yet barely known to the casual fan. He'd been the quiet backbone behind the scenes, a sideman, a session player, even the frontman for pure Prairie League. But solo success kept slipping through his fingers. 2 solo albums under RCA came and went with barely a ripple. The critics loved him. The charts ignored him. As others strutted onto TV shows and endorsement deals, Vince sat in his quiet moments wondering, was all this heartbreak even worth it? Was this really all there was? Vince Gill, the man with the golden voice and broken heart, was starting to wonder if his dream had already hit its ceiling. That's when fate showed up wearing a leather jacket and holding a guitar, in the form of Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. At that moment, Dire Straits were untouchable. Their album Brothers in Arms had sold millions, and the band was filling arenas across the globe. But this wasn't just some casual invitation or a quick guest gig. Knopfler wanted Vince Gill as a full-time member of Dire Straits. That meant global fame, sold-out tours, and a life most Oklahoma boys could only fantasize about. For almost anyone, saying yes would have been a no-brainer, a straight shot to rock superstardom. Even Vince admitted he epitomized everything I wanted, and you could tell he was tempted. He knew the perks, the money, the crowds, the fame, the kind of exposure that country radio could never give him. But something deep inside stopped him cold. Later, Vince would say, "I knew if I went down that road, I'd never come back. I wouldn't be me anymore." That one decision defined him. Turning down Dire Straits wasn't just career suicide on paper, it was a test of soul. He didn't want to be someone else's rhythm guitarist. He wanted to tell his own stories to see if his heart alone could carry the weight, and for a while, it looked like he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. The gigs got smaller. The paychecks got thinner. He'd stand on the side of the stage, guitar in hand, watching old bandmates take the spotlight he'd helped them earn. But then, in one of those twists only life or destiny could write, Vince released "When I Call Your Name." The song was pure heartbreak wrapped in beauty, gentle, aching, and real. And just like that, the world finally noticed. The track became a hit, and when Vince took home the Grammy for it, it wasn't just a trophy. It was proof that trusting his gut had paid off. He'd carved his path his own way, no shortcuts, no sellouts. The message was loud and clear. The fastest road to fame isn't always the right one. For Vince, this wasn't about ego. It was about staying true, surviving on authenticity in a world full of imitation. But success always brings shadows, and just as his career hit new heights, new whispers started swirling. And if there was one chapter in Vince Gill's life that got people talking, judging, and speculating, it was his connection with Amy Grant. When the two met in 1993, filming a Christmas special in Tulsa, sparks were instant and impossible to ignore. Vince, the humble country crooner with the soft smile, and Amy, the reigning queen of Christian pop, shared a chemistry that was magnetic. But behind that polished stage glow, their story was tangled and far more complicated than anyone knew. Both were married, Vince to Janice Oliver, Amy to Gary Chapman, and the pull between them was real, no denying it. They've both said they tried to honor their vows, keeping their feelings in check even as repeated collabs drew them closer on and off the stage. Fans weren't buying the restraint, though. Every duet, every long look got sliced up by tabloids, starving for a headline. Then came the timing that made the whispers roar. Vince and Janice divorced in 1997, and 2 years later, Amy and Gary separated. It looked messy from the cheap seats. and both artists seemed genuinely torn up by the choices they had to make, which only fed the noise even more. The backlash hit fast and, in some corners, brutally hard. Amy, with her image built on faith and family, faced boycotts, radio bans, and a flood of angry letters from once devoted fans. Vince's pain stayed quieter, but it cut just as deep. What stung most, he later admitted, was that people assumed the worst without knowing the full story. "We weren't reckless. We were human," he said, laying it out plain and simple. For years, they tried to walk a line in a world eager to label their love as failure instead of endurance. When they finally married in 2000, it wasn't some red carpet spectacle. It was small, family only, in the backyard of Vince's place just outside Nashville, intimate and real. Amy wore a simple dress, and Vince stood beside her. Not as a superstar or a scandal magnet, but as a man who waited for the moment that felt right. For all the outside noise, the truth was always two people finding peace in each other after a long storm, even if the rumors never fully died down. And then came the call that flipped the script in American rock. The Eagles needed a voice after Glenn Frey passed in 2016, and most folks figured the band was done for good. Don Henley had made it clear the group had lost its anchor, so when Vince Gill's name entered the chat, plenty of people were stunned. For Vince, that invitation felt surreal, the kind of full-circle twist you can't predict. The ties were deeper than casual fans realized. Way back in the 80s, he'd been close with folks in that orbit, showing love for the catalog at tributes and dropping Eagles cuts into his own sets, including I Can't Tell You Why. So when Irving Azoff reached out with the invite, Vince didn't flinch. "When do we leave?" he reportedly shot back. But stepping into Glenn Frey's space was never about imitation. Vince went to work, grinding through harmonies, tightening guitar lines, and living inside that songbook so he could honor the legacy, not overwrite it. On stage beside Glenn Frey's son, Deacon, Vince Gill carried himself with a kind of humble power, a quiet reverence that said more than words ever could. Every time he sang, the crowd felt it. Over 50,000 fans packed into Dodger Stadium, standing shoulder to shoulder, tears in their eyes, giving standing ovations that shook the place to its core. Even Don Henley, famously hard to impress, gave him his due, saying, "He knows how to be in a band." But of course, not everyone was ready to hand him the mic. Some die-hard fans grumbled that a country boy had no business in a rock legend's seat. The critics circled like vultures, calling the Eagles a tribute act and Vince a hired hand. But Vince? He didn't flinch, didn't take the bait, didn't fire back. "I understand it," he said calmly. "But for me, it's about honoring Glenn and keeping this music alive for the people who love it." That right there is the essence of Vince Gill. No ego, no cheap shots, just truth. He's never chased clout, only authenticity. His move to join the Eagles wasn't about fame, it was about respect, about preserving something sacred while still daring to grow. It proved that even after decades in the spotlight, Vince still had the courage to take risks, to face backlash, and to silence doubters the best way he knew how, one song at a time. But while the world watched him shine on stage, few people knew the storm he was fighting behind closed doors. In 2020, what started as a routine doctor's visit turned into a life-altering discovery. Vince's doctor casually suggested Amy get checked too, and that offhand remark might have saved her life. Tests revealed she had a rare congenital heart defect called partial anomalous pulmonary venous return. She'd need open-heart surgery, and fast. The operation went well, but recovery was brutal, made even harder by the crushing isolation of the COVID lockdowns. Hospital restrictions meant Vince couldn't even sit by her bedside for days. Imagine that. The man who wrote some of country's most tender love songs, stuck outside, waiting helplessly. When he was finally allowed in, he didn't leave her side. Amy later said, "He was there holding me up, never letting me feel alone." Just when they thought the worst was over, another tragedy hit. In July 2022, Amy suffered a traumatic brain injury after a bike accident in Nashville. She was knocked unconscious for several minutes. Recovery meant months of physical therapy, memory lapses, and painful setbacks. Vince didn't hesitate. He canceled concerts and cleared his calendar, telling fans, "No stage matters more than seeing her well again."
And I called your name.
Suddenly, his old song, "When My Amy Prays," took on a whole new weight. No longer just lyrics, but a living testament to love, resilience, and faith. These weren't tabloid moments or chart-topping headlines. They were private battles that revealed who Vince Gill truly is. A man who's faced heartbreak, scandal, and fame, but still puts loyalty above the lights, love above legacy, and heart above everything else. Vince stood firm, calm, steady, unshakable. That kind of strength can't be faked. And that kind of story only hits if you're willing to look past the noise and the rumors. With shelves stacked high with awards and more hits than most artists could ever dream of, you'd think Vince Gill would finally take it easy. But nope. Even at 67, he's still restless, still reaching, still writing from a place that's pure heart. He's not chasing the charts anymore. He's chasing truth. "I'm writing the best songs of my life now," he said in a 2023 interview. But they're not the ones that'll top the charts. They're the ones that matter. And that's exactly what defines this chapter of Vince Gill's story. Art with purpose. Songs that cut deep, not just catchy. Take "Forever Changed," that haunting ballad from 2019. Written about the pain of childhood abuse. Not his story, but told with such raw empathy that listeners everywhere felt seen, felt understood. That's Vince Gill, fearless enough to sing what others stay silent about. His words don't just entertain, they heal. With age has come a kind of freedom, the freedom to speak the hard truths, to tackle topics most would avoid, to use his voice for something real. His songwriting has become a mirror, sometimes gentle, sometimes painfully sharp, but always honest, and still, the whispers keep coming. Fans wonder, is Vince retiring? Is something wrong with his health? Is his marriage with Amy on the rocks? He finally answered all that, face on. "I'm not retiring. I'm not stepping away. I'm not chasing my past. I'm writing my truth in the present." That's vintage Vince. Direct, grounded, and completely at peace with who he is. He's turned down big money offers that didn't feel right, chosen collaboration over competition, and kept his music authentic in an industry that constantly chases trends. Because for Vince, legacy isn't about trophies. It's about truth. And now the real rumor has been confirmed. Vince Gill is exactly who he seems. No masks, no image to protect. Just a man who's been through it all. Imperfect, honest, scarred, and still searching for meaning. He's made peace with his past, owned his mistakes, and found redemption not through fame, but through faith, family, and the music that still heals him as much as it heals everyone who listens. When you look back, Vince's story isn't just a list of records, awards, or headlines. It's a story of living fully, heartbreaks endured, scandals survived, and choices made for the right reasons, not the easy ones. At 67, he's got nothing left to prove and nothing left to hide. What he's revealed now is more powerful than any rumor that ever tried to define him. From a small-town boy haunted by family tragedy to a global icon unafraid to bare his soul, Vince Gill's journey is pure proof that real greatness isn't loud. It's steady, humble, and true. Through every storm, every reinvention, and every challenge, He's chosen honesty over hype. And that's what sets him apart. So what about you? Which Vince Gill song has meant the most to you? Tell us in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to America's Hidden Gold channel for more powerful, untold stories from the heart of music.